Listen up. I won't sugarcoat it. This is the longest cold, flu, and allergy season we've ever seen, but we're not alone. We've got Instacart. Sure, you may be a coughing snot faucet who just wants mommy, but you're not giving up. Not when cold medicine, fragrant herbal teas, and honey shaped like bears can be delivered through Instacart in as fast as 30 minutes. Now let's go win the sick playoffs.
Daddy, I just want my soup.
Oh, sorry, Sport. App says it'll be here in a few minutes. Instacart for the win.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
This is Kansas State's Cooper Beebe, and you're listening to the Powercat Postgame Podcast on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network. Make sure you're subscribing to this show on your favorite podcast provider.
Welcome to your Pittsburgh edition of the Powercat Postgame Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Ryan Gilbert here from a lovely Homewood Suites near the Pittsburgh Airport, following Kansas State's 48-31 victory over West Virginia on Saturday afternoon in Morgantown. A very strange game indeed. We'll get into all of that. But you know what you need to get into? You need to get in some Caddyshack golf wear. That's what you need to do. Make sure, if you want something cool for Christmas, you let your significant other know about Caddyshack Golf. Caddy with 2 T's, caddyshackgolf.com. Use code GPC for free shipping on your next order, and they will get you hooked up with some sweet Golfin' Willie stuff. And speaking of golfing, Ryan Gilbert, as we pivot now, West Virginia took a swing at K-State. I got to admire the Mountaineers. I really do. They're having a horrible season. It hasn't gone as expected. Neil Brown is expected to be fired, if not this week, after this game, after his last game next Saturday. But they're playing for him. They're fighting. They're trying to win. They just beat Oklahoma in Morgantown, and then Kansas State jumps out to a 14-0 lead. And then they come right back. They have a 26-yard touchdown pass. They end up getting their own pick six, but it only ended up being 6 because then their field goal kicker, who has been reliable throughout his career, absolutely collapsed in this game, missed 2 extra points, missed a field goal. But they turned this into a much more competitive game than I expected coming in, and certainly expected after K-State goes up 14-0 with 11:51 left in the first quarter because of Sincere Mason's own 37-yard interception return. How baffling was this K-State defensive performance in the first quarter particularly, but the first half as a whole?
It was surprising, especially you look at what happened last week with Baylor and just how dominant they've been this season. Certainly was baffling, but I think a lot is to be said about West Virginia. You mentioned them going down 14-0 in a team that has won 4 games all year, could easily just check out and say, you know what, our season's pretty much over. You know, it's going to be a matter of time before our coach is gone as well. But, you know, they fought back, and, you know, hats off to the Mountaineers that, you know, throughout the week and after the game, you know, Kleinman's mentioned just how, you know, talented of a football group that is. And obviously they didn't get the outcome they wanted. But I think a good thing for Will Howard in this game was to throw that pick 6. And then suddenly he's only up by 1 point after such a hot start. You know, it's been just, you know, it's been glamorous for Howard when he's played this season for the most part, when he's not dinged up. And for him to kind of face some adversity, I think that's what can build a quarterback's character. And we saw that, you know, Howard was able to, you know, respond and step up in a big way. Obviously, that first half was a little dicey on both sides of the ball at times, but, you know, a good, you know, really, really solid second half for Kansas State. The first half, like I mentioned, Could have been a lot better on defense, but defense stepped up in the second half as well.
Yeah, it was amazing. K-State led 28-19 at the end of the first quarter. The first quarter had 47 points in it. I did do my math right.
I'm not good at math, but that's a lot of points, isn't it?
And then they outscored them 13-6 in the second to take a 41-25 lead at halftime. They hit the over well early in the second quarter.
Imagine betting the under.
Yeah, I can't imagine what kind of idiot would have done that. But back to that interception by Will Howard. He has been fitting the ball into very tight spaces all season long when he has played. This is only his fourth game. And when we asked Deuce Vaughn last week after the Baylor win what Will does so well, he goes, he takes chances. So when you're taking chances, sometimes it's not going to work. And that's what that interception was. He didn't get it out to the receiver, was a little bit off target.
That was a bad throw.
It was a bad throw, and he admitted that.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting after the game. In the maturation process of Will Howard has just been incredible. That the former Will Howard probably would have let that impact him. Probably would have carried it into the next possession. But he went to the sideline. Adrian Martinez talked to him. Coach Kleiman didn't even talk to him. We asked Coach Kleiman if he talked to him, and he goes, no. Will's so mature and confident now, I'm not going to go over there and talk to him. Excuse me. I knew that he was fine. And he was. He comes right back out, leads K-State down the field for another score. The offense wasn't the problem. The offense at times was really dynamic. Now, did they pull in their horns a little bit in the second half? Yeah, I think they did. I think they realized that we need to run the clock. We need to keep the defense fresh, and it really paid off. I mean, after all those points in the first half, there were no points in the third quarter after K-State made a nice defensive stand. West Virginia started the second half of the ball.
It was a long drive.
Drove down the field. Penalties and penalties, but kept overcoming it, and then K-State stopped them. And that was an encouraging sign after how poorly they had played in the first half. And the fourth quarter, both teams scored a touchdown, but again, West Virginia goes for 2 and misses. So the second half point total was 7-6 after all those points in the first half, which is absolutely remarkable. You look at the score and you see 48-31, and that's a football score. That makes sense. But then when you find out that West Virginia missed 4 point-after conversions, you start to understand how kind of strange this game became during the course of the contest. But I feel like this team right now is so much more, again, mature than it was earlier in the year. When they got into a tussle with Tulane, things weren't going well for them. They couldn't overcome that. They just couldn't find a way to solve the problems they were facing. And, then their other losses were to TCU, really good football team. And Texas just came out with a dominant half, but kind of a defensive performance like we saw in the first half. But this team was able to solve the problems. Now, honestly, a better team than West Virginia probably would have made this even more competitive. But, Gills, I think it's a really positive sign that this team, when not playing their best football, and when my post-game grades come out, you'll find out that I thought it was very average overall as a performance, that they overcame that. They still won comfortably. They got out of here with the win. They're 8-3 on the season. They're, 6-2 in the Big 12. They're 1 win away from playing for a Big 12 championship. This team's journey this season has been amazing. It really has.
And K-State blows out Mizzou. What do they do next game, right? They get a home loss to Tulane. They blow out Oklahoma State. They follow that with a loss to Texas. And then last week they had a blowout victory, and they finally are kind of able to find that consistency that I think Chris Kleiman's been looking for, not just this season, but over the last couple of seasons. Maybe his Achilles heel is just getting his teams ready game in and game out. I think he's starting to find that winning formula, I think, for Kansas State.
It is of note, you mentioned Chris Kleiman there, and let's just mention this before we get into more of the game. This win triggered an automatic extension in his contract. He's now up to $4.3 million. People are going to come after him. I have no doubt in that. I don't see him leaving. I've said it. There's only one job I think he leaves for, and that's Iowa, and that's not going to be open. But the year he was hired, he was one of 4 new coaches in the conference. Les Miles, gone. Matt Wells, gone. Neil Brown, soon to be gone. and it was Neil Brown who was the other finalist for the K-State job. Now, you never know what he would have done here as opposed to there, but I got to say, I saw him use timeouts and do some things in this game that I don't understand. I would have lost
Timeout at the end of the first half was awful.
Yeah, he was calling timeouts to try to get the ball back, and then they don't do anything, and he gives the ball right back to K-State at midfield, and they get a field goal. So Chris Kleiman is going to be the survivor of that 4-man new coaching recruiting class in the Big 12 from the start of the 2019 season. And he's proven everyone that he can not only survive, but he can thrive. He can coach. And we've seen this program get a little bit better. The COVID year, come on. I mean, that was just a mess. Yeah. I mean, Will Howard alone is the perfect definition of how different the COVID year is from then to now.
And Will Howard is why they played so many games that COVID season.
Yeah, I mean, they kept playing games because they barely had enough players, or they decided not to declare the no contest. They went 4-6, and I literally, for K-State, it's not true for everyone. The way K-State handled that, I admire them. They could have ended the season 4-4 and no contest in the last 2 games, but they didn't. They played, including playing here, and losing that game. Honestly, I don't remember that game. I mean, everyone's after the post game was talking about the game. I remember Iowa State and Texas. That's what I really remember from that season.
The lows of that season.
Yeah. But what's of interest here is Will Howard's from the Philadelphia area. So this is a home game for him. This is the only game he can play where his family and relatives and friends can all comfortably come to the game, even though it's a 4.5-hour drive. It's essentially, being from Manhattan and playing at Oklahoma. I mean, that's what the drive is for them. He had a lot of friends and family in the stands. So I was really happy that Will played a good game, because he did. He was really impressive throughout the game. And let's look at his final stat line here. And again, Will Howard has this amazing ability to look really good in the course of the game, be really efficient. But then you look at his stats, 19 of 27 with the interception. He did throw for 294. His long was 43, and I believe that was probably the Malik Knowles. Yep, the Malik Knowles. Most of that was Malik Knowles making a move and running up the sideline.
It wasn't a touchdown, though, was it?
No, that one was.
Okay.
That was the
other
one that
was missed by a yard.
Okay. That's the one he got into. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But anyhow, good for Will Howard to come back here where he had one of his bad games as a true freshman. And people always seem to forget that this kid shouldn't have been playing. I mean, because of the transition, there was quarterback attrition, and then Skyler gets hurt and he has to play. He really was the only other choice at that point to play. And he played okay at times and awful at other times. And it's all led up to this. That was like investments into what we're seeing now. And it was painful for him. It was painful for the fans. It was ugly at times with how ugly the fans got to him. But here we are. It all kind of pays off as Will Howard just has turned into an incredible young quarterback. It's absolutely amazing to see, but I felt really good for him talking to him in postgame about, all his family was here and he played another good game.
Singing Country Roads in the locker room.
Yeah.
That we overheard. But, you mentioned it. I don't remember
It wasn't
that.
good. It wasn't good singing.
It was mediocre at best. I think Brandon Plattner was probably taking the lead, right?
He's probably playing guitar.
I didn't remember that West Virginia game either from 2020, and I don't think a lot of fans, we probably chose to forget that game, but clearly this team did not. Howard mentioned that this was a game he had circled, and I think a couple other players had mentioned, the importance of this game. And so to get that win, for Howard is special, and he made some professional throws today, as he has done the last couple games he's played. I mean, you go to his throw to Ben Sinnott, that was probably a play where he could have ran it, maybe jogged into the end zone. And instead, what does he do? He decides to pin the needle and thread it in there, and he gets a touchdown pass, right? I think that shows how confident he is in his arm, because he had a walk-in touchdown right in front of him, but instead he decides to show off that arm. He had a few plays like that. Now, I don't want to give Howard all the credit, because Colin Klein did call a pretty good game. Yeah. There was quite a few occasions K-State was just wide open, and Carson Kaufman could have made a throw like that, right? But by and large, Howard, you throw away that pick six, and he had a really good game, but at the same time, against TCU, knock on wood, in the Big 12 championship or in the Sugar Bowl, one of these big games that could be coming up, a pick six like that could be costly.
Right.
One mistake from Howard, I think most fans can live with that because it comes with a great reward with some of those accurate, gunslinging passes. But when you have 2-3 mistakes, then it can really add up and honestly lose you a game. So there's a fine line there, and Howard is riding it right now. Who knows how much longer he can do that? But for now, if he can make those accurate throws, because I don't think the accuracy was really the issue with his pick six. It was a bad decision to make that throw. It was his second, third read, and you throw that one in the dumpster. I think K-State, Will Howard's going to move on from that. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's the Adrian Martinez dilemma. You can't let one bad play turn into 2, 3, 4, 5 bad plays like we've seen with Martinez in the past. I don't think Howard's going to do that, but there is still a possibility that could happen.
Interesting story about that touchdown to Ben Sinnott when we talked to him in postgame. And it's so funny to see Ben Sinnott out on the field. He's a man. I mean, that's a
You mean
big
Gronk?
Yeah, baby Gronk, Ben Gronk. He's big, he's impressive, and then he comes into postgame and he looks like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old
Right.
kid. He just looks like he's baby-faced, and it's unbelievable. But it's the same guy that does these physical feats on the field.
His hands, too. He's got great hands
It's
for how
amazing.
big he is.
It's amazing how focused in he is on the catch process. How fundamentally incredible. He could put on a clinic. I mean, how to catch the ball. He's always got his hands positioned really well. But it was a broken down play. Will Howard's rolling out to his right. Ben Sinnott is supposed to be in the center of the field, and he reads what's going on and comes back around, loops back around, and he's only got about, half a step on his coverage guy. But he said Will and him locked eyes, and he knew it was coming. And like you said, if Will decides to tuck and run, Ben just turns and screens off his guy, and there's no one there. There was no one else on that side of the field. It's an easy walk-in touchdown. Will just zipped it right in there. His accuracy on so many of the balls he throws is absolutely incredible. The mistake aside, he might have had another play where it could have been intercepted, but I think it was Cade Warner competed for the ball and got it out of there.
And I hate to say this, but Martinez probably just walks it in for the touchdown, which there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Because you're still scoring 6 points, but just the confidence that Howard has to make that throw speaks for itself.
It's shocking how confident he is. And he's so confident he can make a mistake and say, hell with it. I'll just go out there and, do it again. But you're right. I mean, if he gets into a big game and he makes that pick six, it probably won't be as easy to go back on the field and light up the defense because West Virginia's defense was trash in the first half. I mean, they really were. The only thing West Virginia on defense is really good with, they're good up front. And they did pressure him. I was surprised to see postgame he only had 1 sack. I swear he had 2 or 3, but he must have got back to the line of scrimmage or something. But they were pressing him and forcing him. So I feel like this was a good step in the Will Howard growth process.
It's always good when you learn from a win.
Right. He went out on the field and he had some issues and he overcame them. He didn't have a clean pocket most of the night. People were around him, making contact with him. He was running. And he still achieved what he needed to achieve to win the game. This was a significant step in the Will Howard growth process, maybe more so than how easy it looked in the first half against TCU, against Oklahoma State, or against Baylor.
Yeah, and this was his first true game as a quote-unquote starter with first team reps for a whole 5 days of practice, whatever. I mean, maybe in the back of some people's mind that could be a bad thing because he might overthink, some things too much. Because when you're a backup, how much pressure really is there throughout the week or even 15 minutes before the game? I would assume not much. So for him to, have a full week of being the man and play a whole game as the man and still go out and play dominant like that obviously shows to just how much of a leader he is.
Absolutely. K-State wins here in, not here because we're in a whole different state. They win at West Virginia on Saturday afternoon, 48-31 to improve their record to 8-3 on the season, one step away from playing for a Big 12 championship. And we'll talk about that, a few closing thoughts on the game as we look ahead to the path Kansas State football has at what could end up being a rather remarkable season. We'll be right back after a short break.
This is Kansas State's Daniel Green, the leaders in K-State sports coverage. We'll be right back with more of the Powercat Postgame Podcast.
Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% replied that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They're made from the rarest organic cotton and designed to get even softer over time. Try their sheets with a 30-night guarantee plus 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. So head to BOLLandbranch.com today. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
Diets and workouts, you've done the work, so why can't you get to your goal weight? That's because up to 70% of your weight is predetermined by your genetics. So while you've been told that it's all about your willpower, you're actually fighting your biology. Don't do it alone. Found's doctor-designed program uses medication as part of a treatment plan that targets your body's unique biological needs, so that your body works with you and not against you. Take the quiz at joinfound.com to see if Found's weight loss program is right for you.
This is Kansas State's Felix and Udika Uzama. Welcome back to the Powercat Postgame Podcast on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Powercat Postgame Podcast, sponsored by Caddy Shack Golf. Caddy with 2 T's, caddyshackgolf.com. Go check out their stuff. Got quarter zips, they got hoodies, they got all kinds of golf stuff, but they also have some really cool merchandise that you can get aside from apparel. Make sure you check it out. We appreciate Caddyshack for being our longtime sponsor of this podcast. I'm Tim Fitzgerald. Ryan Gilbert from GoPowercat is here with me as we recap Kansas State's 48-31 victory over West Virginia on Saturday afternoon at Milan Puskar Stadium.
I prefer Mountaineer Field.
I like Mountaineer Field too. It was an odd game as we covered it. Do you think they missed, over the course of this game, the presence of Kobe Savage on the back end of the defense? And, of course, Kobe tore his ACL last week. He's gone for the season. I'm worried about the impact of that, particularly when you know this. We don't know the severity of Sincere Mason's injury, another safety who had the pick six early in the game and then left the field in the second half. Coach Kleiman said we'll probably not know till Monday on that. If they've lost both of those guys, they're going to have some serious issues in the back end of this defense.
Yeah, there's no way around it. I mean, we can't sugarcoat it at all, really. Without Kobe Savage, you're going to need playmakers to step up. And VJ Payne, I don't think, played a good first half, but he stepped up, made some plays in the second half. Coach Kleiman was, made some compliments on him stepping up in that game. But, yeah, there's no way around it. That's where I was going to go about the defense. And they made some adjustments. They were able to kind of learn to play without him, but for the first 30 minutes of that game, they didn't know how to play without him, it seems like. And obviously it's just one player. The defensive line is going to be stellar as always. I don't think there's any concern besides Felix not hearing whistles, I guess, be blown. But other than that, it's the secondary. The cornerbacks are going to be fine, and that's an issue. That's, I guess, a position group, I should say, that's going to need some tweaking. I don't know if they adjust, the whole defense just to cater to that spot, but I don't know. I don't want to put too much stock into one half of football because the second half was fine. They bended a little bit. They didn't break, and they really did step up. I don't know if they changed anything schematically. I didn't see anything. Did you, Fitz? But
No. And Chris Kleiman said a big part of the problem was just tackling.
Yeah.
And they weren't getting guys down. Yeah, I did notice, though, that there was no safeties really attacking the runners at near the line of scrimmage, and that's something Kobe Savage does very well. And we also, to be honest here, Josh Hayes played his worst game as a Wildcat. He got torched pretty good in the first half. He was a step behind his receiver consistently, and I don't know if they had him doing other things in this game that he hasn't done in the past. But he seemed to be – West Virginia did a good job of isolating him, which I was shocked because he has been good this year that they decided to pick on him, and it worked. So maybe they exposed something for future opponents. That is worrisome. But overall, they came back in the second half and shut things down. And you got to admit that Garrett Green, the quarterback, he brings something else to West Virginia that Daniels, their starter, doesn't. And I guess Neil Brown will probably go into the unemployment line with a huge buyout, wondering what happens this season if he puts Green on the field sooner. because they're a much more effective offense with his ability to run, and he's not advertised as a thrower. He was good. I mean, 15 to 27. He had 2 picks that were significant, but considering where this offense has been, I think he's going to regret not playing him earlier.
But K-State's defense, I mean, give them some credit. There was a half a football and a little bit more on tape of Green. So there was not a whole lot to work with there. And they said they had scouted for both guys. But let's be honest, Fitz, when you have that little number of snaps, it might be tough to make some of those adjustments. And they did. But Green was fine. I mean, I don't know if I want to give K-State, I don't want to say that those interceptions were amazing plays. The throw to Brent's where he picked that one off was kind of just an overthrow. Mason's I'd have to look at again. I don't know if that was a great play.
Underthrow, I think.
So, but by and large, Green was fine. And, talking with Chris Anderson from our 24/7 site heading into this game, the offense, the wide receivers just didn't care. Like when Daniels was in there, like they were just kind of jogging on routes. And then when Green was in there, they played with a sense of urgency and wanted to, play and win for that guy. So regardless of who might be the better quarterback, Green gives West Virginia a much higher ceiling.
Let's mention some good things about defense. Brendan Mott. Wow. Look, West Virginia did a great job protecting. Probably a lot of holding, but they kept Felix at bay most of the day. But Brendan Mott steps forward with a team-high 8 tackles, I believe, and 3 sacks. He had 3 sacks in this game, and a lot of it was catching Green as he tried to scramble away, got him by the heels, got him down. But Mott was huge in this game. It was impressive. That kid, we talk about Ben Sinnott getting better and better. Here's another kid that looks like a man on the field, walks into post-game, you're like, who are you taking to prom? Seriously, he's so young looking. But he was relentless in this game, and I thought Daniel Green was fantastic at times. He had a great play on a 4th and 1 attempted sneak where he came over the top. He told me that they had scouted it perfectly. The coaches, they had practiced that over-the-top play. It wasn't spontaneous. It was in the defensive game plan, and he knew the snap count. They're pretty consistent. They want to get up there and snap it real fast, so he knew they were coming, and he timed it perfectly. He got over the top and hit Green before he could go anywhere.
Yeah.
So there were some highlights.
It had a lot of twists and turns in it, but that play from Green was just huge. I mean, this was in the first quarter when it was still, I believe, a 14-13 game. If West Virginia goes and gets that, maybe they score a touchdown. K-State's in a hole. Maybe Howard pushes, and obviously, who knows what happens. But I go back to that Baylor game last week. K-State forces that pick after a pretty atrocious start on offense, and then on defense, they just let Baylor go right down the field. And then out of nowhere, a kind of a tip pass, a fluky play, falls in K-State's arms, and then they never looked back, right? And I think you can point to 5 or 10 plays a game, but that's just one of them right there that if Green doesn't do that, maybe the game goes differently for Kansas State. Who knows?
I agree. A couple other guys to point out from the stat sheet that had significant performances. How about DJ Giddens? 12 carries for 78 yards. He led K-State in rushing, not Deuce Vaughn. DJ Giddens, and part of that was a 49-yard touchdown run where he got loose down the sideline and just pulled away. He's really turning into a really good running back. When you stop and consider K-State had nothing behind Deuce, to have DJ Giddens evolve this quickly during his redshirt freshman year is a positive sign for this offense going forward. As I mentioned, Deuce was not the leading ball carrier. He carried the ball 22 times for 67 yards. He had a long of 15 yards, which was a touchdown run in which I think you could have scored on it. It was so perfectly designed.
You could have too.
I might have been able to. It was so perfectly designed and executed that he just had the whole side of the field open to him at one point, and the only guy that was out there to possibly tackle him was covering Cade Warner and was in man coverage with his back turned, and Cade just ran him to the back of the end zone. You could see Cade almost laughing that it worked so easily.
Yeah.
The other guy I want to point out that we've been hard on in the past because he hasn't always played well at times is Malik Knowles, and he was significant in this game. He had 6 catches for 111 yards. That alone sounds awesome. 77 of those 111 yards were after the catch. Malik got the ball and turned it into something, and I think that's what Will does so exceptionally well. He doesn't just put the ball in the money. He puts the ball where the the receiver can then do something. And so often past K-State offenses, it's throw the ball out there, you get tackled. Throw the ball out there, you go out of bounds. Throw the ball out there, you might get 5-6 yards. He's putting it in positions where guys like Ben Sennett, Malik Knowles, Phillip Brooks, Cade Warner can then do something. Deuce Vaughn can do something with the ball after they catch. And that's Malik was really good. And you got to be happy for Malik. He's had his struggles. He's wanted to get the ball more, and now he's getting it, ironically, from the quarterback that nobody thought would get it to him.
And K-State's receiver group has kind of gotten a rep for being probably the worst on offense, right? Which I think is fair, but Knowles has, he stepped up big tonight, and Cade Warner's got, 5 or 6 touchdowns in the last 4 games or something like that. And, Giddens, Vaughn, they have guys that can catch the football. Will Howard talked about it, just the number of guys that can go out and make a play, whether that be on a deep ball or a 5-10 yard pass, and then let them find some green grass and make a play just with their own legs when they have the football in their hands. But you mentioned how Giddens is stepping up. I mean, how badly does Deuce Vaughn just need a guy like that?
Yeah.
I think Vaughn had 3 yards a carry tonight, which is not good. It's terrible for his standards, but that's mediocre at best. And for Giddens not only to just come in and provide a spark like that, but also to give Vaughn just some rest. I mean, you mentioned if Giddens isn't playing, I think Vaughn is going to get 90-95% of the carries, right? You might have a jet sweep here or there, but Giddens stepping up is just huge for that room. And I don't think Vaughn's 100% right now. I mean, this point in the season, I think he's close to 100%, but he's clearly in need of a guy like Giddens to step up. And Giddens had a career high in rushing attempts and yards against Baylor. I'd have to check the numbers on if he surpassed those tonight, but he's coming around the corner. And if Vaughn gets up and leaves this year, if not next year, whenever that may be, I think you're obviously going to be disappointed, upset that Vaughn's gone. You're going to miss the heck out of him, but look at what Giddens is doing.
Yeah.
They're totally different backs. I get that, but he's proving that he can be a respectable running back in the Big 12.
He's almost the closer, too. He comes in late game situations where they're trying to run out the clock. They need to get first downs. His big physical presence.
Defense is tired.
Plus, he's fresher.
Yeah.
And he did it again. He picked up, I don't know how many of his carries were in the final minutes of this game, but it was 3 or 4 carries that were, helped K-State just salt it away and get to the victory formation. So another nice win for Kansas State. They haven't been good this season at stringing things together. You mentioned it earlier in the podcast. They get a win, they have a setback. They get a win, they have a setback. And now they have an opportunity to make it 3 in a row. Kansas comes to town on Saturday. It's not just the Sunflower Showdown or the battle for John Brown's rifle. It is the 7 p.m. Fox National game.
Who would have thought?
I was shocked that they made the selection. I admire them for making this selection. It's very good for the programs, both K-State and KU. KU has had an historic season by their own measurements. They're 6-5 now, but nobody expected that, for them to be bowl eligible. And they come to Manhattan with the opportunity to absolutely trash Kansas State's season. If Texas beats Baylor on Friday, then K-State has to win this game to get to the Big 12 championship, or Texas gets there. I feel like Kansas is going to be highly, highly motivated for that game, and this could be a real battle at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, but the Bill will be rocking next Saturday.
It'll be rocking. And how lame was that crowd here in Morgantown?
It's sad
I asked
to
you
see.
up in the press box, I said, how long has it been since K-State's had something like this? And before I was born, basically, was what you answered.
Yeah.
So, I think that gives you just such an appreciation for how special. Yeah, we hear that all the time, and sometimes people overdo it, whatever. But you never see a K-State football game, even against a team you've never heard of, looking like that. And yeah, the KU game's going to be huge. It's going to be rocking, and obviously, there's traditionally, I think attendance is down when K-State plays over the Thanksgiving break. Students aren't there, but I think it's going to be rocking. You're not going to see an empty seat, especially in that lower bowl, and maybe not even in the upper deck.
Yeah, I'm confident a lot of students will come back.
Yeah,
they'll make it back for the game. But yeah, that the West Virginia crowd was sparse. It's been bad this year, and that's beside the record, aside from the fact that they're now 4-7 on the season, they had a chance to get bowl eligible. They won their last two, but that didn't happen.
Even in the last years of Snyder, though, it wasn't that bad.
No, their fans have just absolutely checked out, and that's the biggest sign of trouble. Yep. When the fans don't care enough to show up, you got big issues, and that's usually what pushes things over the edge. Oddly enough, I don't think that pushed their AD over the edge, so they pushed him over the edge and fired him this week because it sounds like he didn't want to make the move, and they said, well, okay, get out of here. Even though you're an award-winning AD that heads up a bunch of committees for the NCAA, you're out.
We'll make your move for you.
Yeah, you signed a horrible extension for this guy. You approved it. You're out. But back to K-State. Is this team capable of beating Kansas? I say yes. But then going to Arlington the week after, there's no time off. I mean, you got to turn right around and play a 13th game, and beating TCU, a team that just knows how to win, and they proved it again on Saturday.
Yeah. You can think what you want about Vegas and all the lines that they have, but they were, favored by 2-3 against Baylor?
2.5, yeah.
Underdogs by 7 last week to Texas. They're a beatable team, and obviously the numbers, the analytics, Vegas, all back that up. They don't play like an undefeated team. They are, and you've got to give them all the credit in the world for doing that, but it's a beatable team. If K-State can stay healthier in that game in Fort Worth from a couple weeks ago, there's a good chance they win that game, Yeah. And the fact that K-State has played them. They had this game against West Virginia circled from 2 years ago, right? I think they have games here and there that are always circled, and if you get the opportunity for a rematch against TCU, that's absolutely going to be a game circled that all these guys care about. Obviously, we got to give TCU, they're going to be locked in as well, right? That's not a team that's just going to, we're ranked 3 or 4 in the nation, but we just won the Big 12, we don't care. No, they're going to be locked in. TCU, I would assume, controls their own destiny. I don't follow the college, national landscape as much as others, but if they win the Big 12, go undefeated, they're going to make it to the the playoff. I think K-State coaches, players, fans would love to be the spoiler, right? We got spoiled. K-State got spoiled in 12 by Baylor, right? I think K-State would just love to spoil TCU, and there was some chippiness in that TCU game, right? I wasn't down there. You and Cole and Go and Zach were all down there and just said that there were some issues with stuff being thrown on the field, right? And
there was a lot of hostility.
It's going to be a chippy game. Yeah. Obviously, knock on wood if that happens. But to piggyback back to your initial question, yes, K-State absolutely can beat TCU. It's not going to need to be some sort of miracle if they play in the Big 12 championship for a win. Yeah,
K-State wraps up its season with Kansas, as mentioned, 7 p.m. next Saturday. TCU finishes up its regular season with Iowa State in Fort Worth, a 3 p.m. game. For the Frogs.
Could be a trap game.
Well, I don't think it's a trap game in terms of wins and losses. I don't think Iowa State can outscore them.
Sure.
But Iowa State is one of the more physical teams in this conference. They will defend TCU and maybe give K-State a blueprint how to shut down that offense, because the one thing Iowa State does that's elite, defense. They're just the opposite on offense. They stink, but they can't win any games because the offense is so bad. But they do defend at an extremely high level, and I think they could set the stage by helping K-State kind of wear down TCU a little bit and maybe show how to stop them.
Yeah, even if Iowa State does win, changes absolutely nothing, right? But putting some stuff on tape for K-State certainly could help. Yep. Couldn't be a bad thing.
Absolutely. That's it for this edition of the Powercat Postgame Podcast. I'll have a bonus episode again with Brien Hanley. We've done this throughout the season with road games, first because of technical issues, but now because, damn, K-State wins again on the road. They're 4-1 on the road in Big 12 games this season, and the one team they've lost to on the road, possibly, likely, maybe, awaits them in 2 weeks in Arlington. We appreciate you listening to this edition of the podcast, and make sure you listen to everything we record at your favorite podcast network provider, and go check out our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button there and follow us on YouTube. I'll have lots of walk and talks and daily deliveries. Brian Gilbert, thank you very much, and thank you to Caddy Shack Golf.
Thank you for listening to the Powercat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.